Thank you. We'll start with Mr. Mello. With the 5 deaths that we've had at the jail over the last 4 years, what do you feel that, if elected, you could do to help curb those incidents?
One of the first things I'm going to say, and it's not going to be very popular, but I'm not doing this to become popular, Ken. The first thing I'm going to say is accreditation has gotten in the way of common sense. I think we need to go back in there and we need to take a look at what we used to do before. When I was a jail administrator, I spent over 5 years as jail administrator, never had a death or an officer insult in that 5 years, based on leadership, maturity in leadership, and making the right decisions. We spend more time worrying about being accredited and having a model jail. We had a model jail back in the day. We passed the jail model standards every time we were inspected. We were working toward accreditation. But what happens every time we get reaccredited, we spend more time on overtime playing the paperwork game for CALIA than worrying about what we're actually doing with the boots on the ground in the jail. There's some serious issues in there. And to tout the experience of having a bachelor's degree or a master's degree with a minor in psychology, and you make a statement on a suicidal inmate that I thought he was getting better is unacceptable. It is totally unacceptable. The man came to jail, he was suicidal. When he got sentenced, the flag should have come up. He should have been put right back on suicide watch and not had the ability to jump off of the balcony. The next issue is when we have a death in the jail, we should bring in an outside investigation. When you bring in an outside investigation, it means you have transparency. That's what transparency means. It means you're bringing it in and you're letting somebody say, hey, you made mistakes here, and then you have the leadership, the maturity, and the education to fix it. But we didn't do that. We investigated it ourselves. Did not bring in an outside agency. However, if the deputy has a car crash, we call Florida Highway Patrol to investigate the car crash. Now, what's more important, a car crash or an inmate's life? I'll let you answer that question, sir.
I would like to add to that if I could.
I'm going to let Mr. Angelini go next. You'll have your opportunity here in a
Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, the purpose of the Charlotte County Jail is to process and house individuals that have been accused of a crime and are awaiting some type of trial or been sentenced for a crime. The main focus of the jail is to protect the residents from the community through this process. As you know, and also in 2014, an employee working in the Charlotte County Jail used the sheriff's office computer to solicit an undercover officer posing as a 14-year-old girl for sexual activity. I believe better employee screening and background investigation will be a first step in bringing back some of our lost community trust. And we talk about the prisoners jumping off the second tier of the jail. I didn't know they installed a diving board there, but here's the deal: if somebody jumps off the second tier of the jail, don't you think it should have been addressed the first time? The second time somebody jumps off, don't you think it should be addressed again? The third time somebody jumps off the second tier of the jail, don't you think it should have been addressed? You're talking about 3 people that have jumped off there and lost their lives. Now, these people have families and so forth, and a lot of them were in there for maybe misdemeanors or whatever the case may be, but I think we need to start by, how about putting some kind of physical barrier up there, maybe after the first time that somebody jumped off the second tier. Nothing's being done, and I don't think anything's being done right now either. So, that's my take on it.
Mr. Pope.
Okay, what I'd like to add is, first of all, the sheriff left out that the jail is the unsafest place in Charlotte County. Here's the problem. Education is power. Knowledge is power. We have to understand the difference between a jail and a prison. A jail is a temporary holding facility. Just because you've been arrested, you are not convicted of anything. You've been charged. You have rights just like everyone else. No one expects to go in alive and come out dead. Now, I don't blame that totally on the sheriff, because it's just as much fault with the county commissioners. What people don't understand is that the jail does not belong to the sheriff. Okay, the jail has been given to the sheriff by the county commissioners to run. Now, everyone here that owns a business, you hire someone to manage your business. And if your business is not operating to your potential, you may question, you may write them up, you may dock his pay, But when people start dying in a facility, okay, that you have a sheriff who's been elected to operate, and one death after another, and you're not going to go ahead and conduct an independent investigation, shame on the county commission, shame on the sheriff's office, okay? Someone needs to be held accountable. Any loss of life is a tragic loss, and that's one of the biggest problems that we have right now with the Charlotte County Sheriff, is having someone held accountable for the wrongdoings that are going on, not only on the jail, but on the road. Thank you.
Mr. Prummell?
Thank you, Ken. Yes, we've had 5 deaths in the last 4 years. 3 of them were natural deaths, 2 of them were suicides. The 2 that were suicides were individuals that had jumped off the top tier. We are and have been working on a solution for the top tier, but as stated, the jail is owned by the county. There are certain processes that the county must follow before they can do construction and things of that nature, and we are doing just that. We've tried to put some additional safety precautions in line in our C pod, which is our mental health pod. The other pods are open housing, so it's kind of a little bit more difficult there, but we are working very diligently to prevent people from committing suicide. What doesn't get pointed out is that we have nearly 8,000 people booked into the jail each year. And yes, I've had 5 deaths. What people don't point out too is in 2015, I recognized 15 members in the jail for saving lives of inmates who were trying to commit suicide. So we're not just letting this happen. We are keeping our eyes open, our ears open. We're trying to work with the other inmates within the facility to kind of tell about what's going on with their cellmate. I agree, all deaths are a tragedy, and my staff does investigate all the deaths that occur in the jail. I have talked to the special agent in charge down in Fort Myers about investigations, and he agrees with me that my staff is more, they have more experience in death investigation than his does. And he also indicated that he would take much longer for an investigation if he was to do it. But we do submit every investigation to the state's attorney's office. They are an independent body. They review the case. They have investigators. And if they so choose, and they have chosen, to go out and do additional interviews, they do just that. And everybody is kind of getting on me about conducting this investigation, which we found that no deputy, there was any wrongdoing with any of the deputies. But nobody seemed to have a problem when I investigated a deputy from my traffic unit and I arrested him. That was okay. I don't play favorites. If my people are in the wrong, I will take the corrective action. I have, and I always will. I am very, very much aware of what's going on in the jail. At any given time, 1/3 to 1/3 of my population in the jail is suffering with a mental illness. When you add addiction into that, it's as high as 60%. We are working very closely with our health contractor, with Charlotte Behavioral Health, and other county partners to deal with this issue. And until we get some funding and we start putting the people who are suffering with mental illness where they need to go, I can't really say that we're not going to have more tragedies. We're dealing with suicides almost every day in this community. We have a serious issue with mental health and addiction. We are ranked 49th in the country for funding on mental health, and that's really unacceptable. But I can tell you that the leaders in Charlotte County have got so many different programs going right now that we are moving in the right direction, because we're not getting the funding from the state or from the federal government, but your local government is working very hard to address this issue. Thank you.
Can I just... I got a problem with this, and the problem is our priorities are wrong. Before we start taking tax dollars from the public to build an expansion on the jail, okay, for a hospital wing, instead of addressing the safety of the inmates, maybe we should go ahead and build a morgue instead.
Well, here's the thing, Ed, if you knew anything, we are building a ward onto the jail because I have to deal with the mental health issue. I'm not building it to expand the jail, I'm building it so I have the facilities to properly treat them. Because right now I have so many that they are in a housing pod that we had to turn into an infirmary, which was not built for it. So that's what we're doing. That's why we're building it. I would much rather find a facility outside that they can go to, but I have to deal with what is in the jail.
I understand that, but let me educate you on something. Okay, drug addiction and mental health is not a criminal justice issue, okay? Mental health is a health issue. Drug addiction is a health issue. And as a sheriff, you need to lobby to Tallahassee so funding is provided to the right facilities to be able to house those inmates. Your deputies are not trained, nor do they want the responsibility to handle people with mental illness or drug issues. Because ultimately, who pays for that? The taxpayer. And that is unfair.
The problem is that your mental health and your drug addiction unfortunately causes them to commit crimes, which then puts them in mind. What we are doing is we are training all our deputies in critical intervention training so they can identify somebody who's in crisis rather than somebody who's intentionally committing a crime, so we can divert them to where we do. And I am where they need to go. And I am on the legislative body with the Florida Sheriff's Association, and we have been lobbying our legislators each year for more funding, and slowly it's coming around. We actually got a line item on the budget this past year, actually last year, and they repeated it again this year for CIT funding, because we found that many agencies around the state, both small sheriff's office and police departments, were not training their staff. And we felt it was important that we have all of our law enforcement officers, not just in Charlotte County, but in the state of Florida, trained to recognize mental health issues.
Okay. Mr. Richards.
Ken, I'd like to reserve the right to come back.
Right here.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to go along with a couple of the other candidates. I think after the first incident, the jail should have been looked at. The sheriff, I don't know if he went over there or he didn't. As the sheriff, I would have went over there personally. I would have seen what the problem was and tried to fix it per the rules of the jail. However they would have to fix it, per the rules of corrections. That's what I would have done. He touts on his door hangers that that he's hanging out in the county as a jail operations commander. Then if he's a jail operations commander, then he should probably know how to fix the issues and problems in the jail. That's just my personal opinion. Also, you notice in the paper that the radio transmissions between the corrections officers in the jail have not been being recorded. Now, on the road, if there's an issue on the road and there's an incident where an officer needs to be investigated after something, they go and pull the tape. And the tape tells what was the radio transmission were. In the jail, there has been none of that. So every incident in the jail, whoever got on the radio first and said, hey, we got a guy that jumped off the second tier, it was never recorded. So you can't reenact that. It's gone. Gone forever. It's lost. Outside agency. I believe in outside agency. I'm not saying that the people in the major crimes unit of the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office are not good investigators. I'm just saying for transparency and for integrity, I would have had an outside agency look at every death or incident that occurred in the jail. That would just be my opinion. Changing of the supervisors. They took the colonel out, or the major out of the jail, and nothing against the major. I know him well, a friend of mine, worked with him quite a bit, but they put him in charge of road patrol. They took a captain out of the jail, put him in charge of the road patrol. I know they're trying to get people diversified and everything at the sheriff's office, but you can't take someone that's never put cuffs on someone or kicked the door in during a SWAT raid or something and put them in charge of all the road patrol and things like that. I think that Colonel, he's Colonel now, Rogers, should have stayed in the jail. But none of them incidents occurred when he was in the jail. So.
Very well. Moving on, Mr. Pope, what would you do to reduce the $61 million budget?
Do we have enough time?